Hi there, I'm Admiral Logan, and I'd like to help you get to know me a little bit better by answering some questions from my friends on the Crisis team. Now, if you've been with me a long time, you already probably know me pretty well, because, well, this is my channel, and I've been at this for 7 years, and I've made a couple thousand videos, and up until a month ago, it was very rare to see a video that didn't include me, and as you can tell, that has changed in the last month, and I am partly here to announce finally and proudly that that is changing for the future, that we're not going to go back to the way it was before. We are going to continue to allow the Crisis team to make their own videos, and I don't want to tell you anything beyond that, that in the fact that I am now Admiral Logan, and tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central Time, we're going to have an episode of Primetime Crisis as we have been every Sunday up until tomorrow. And that show, we're going to, halfway through, it'll be an hour show, we're going to unveil this new Geekvolution relaunch and tell you all about the new Geekvolution and the crazy, awesome plans that we have for the future, kind of a la DC Rebirth. And hopefully, at least relatively, some of this will be as exciting for you as some of the stuff we're hearing about from DC with Rebirth. But anyway, I'd like to do what my friends have been doing all day and tell you a little bit about myself. And I imagine there might be a few people who, because we've been getting some new subscribers that some of them may be coming in to see Steve or Manos or Lo and some of the other guys that maybe don't know me very well. So this will be very helpful and informative for those people. But also, those of you that do know me really well, you might still kind of learn something. But be forewarned, at least a couple of these are not going to shock or surprise anybody. The first question comes from the Curious Lo, and she asks, hi Lo, if you had to live in the universe from a book, comic, or movie, which would you choose? The obvious answer for me, of course, is Star Trek, and I couldn't get past the obvious answer once I started thinking about holodecks, because first of all, Star Trek is a really easy, practical answer if you know anything about that universe, because there are a lot of worlds that you might love reading about or watching or playing in a video game, but you wouldn't want to actually live there. And I was thinking about things like, well, Gotham City, I don't know how long you'd live. It's a really corrupt place. It'd be hard to make a living there. Would you really want to live there just because you like watching Batman things? And then I thought of things even like, the city of Townsville and Powerpuff Girls. It's bright, it's colorful, it's chipper, it's crazy. You'd get to walk downtown and see the Powerpuff Girls beating up monsters all the time. But I don't know that place isn't too fast-paced and psychedelic for me. And I kept going back to Star Trek because, again, in the practical sense, Star Trek is, at least if you lived on Earth, practically a utopia. It at least professes, that Earth culture professes to be. It's a society that has gotten rid of all of crime and poverty, and the technology is there to basically have endless resources, and you could pursue anything you wanted to without, really any fear of oppression or somebody, coming in and taking you over, and it'd be very, except for like the Borg or whatever, but it would be a really easy society to live in. And then I realized that you could have your cake and eat it too with holodecks, because you could also go into a holodeck and experience all those other worlds that you might want to go to also. So this might be somewhat of a cop-out, but if I lived in the Star Trek universe, Lo, I could experience all of those different universes also, and safely, as long as I, kept the safeties on. The next one comes from Manos. Manos is the only person who asked me a Star Trek question, but Star Trek has already come up. If you could write a novel about any Star Trek character, who would it be? Now, if my Star Trek club was here right now, they'd all roll their eyes and not be surprised whatsoever about what I'm about to say. But I don't think I've talked about this character all that much on the channel. And some of you will be like, who the heck even is that? But my answer is not a major character. It's in fact a one-shot character that was in a single TNG episode, but my favorite episode, called A Matter of Time, and the character is Berlinghoff Rasmussen. And Berlinghoff Rasmussen, and spoiler alert for that episode, I'm gonna have to spoil the ending to talk about this, but Berlinghoff Rasmussen is a con man who comes from the past, but claims to come from the future. And he stole a time machine from a time traveler that he like met in a dark alley or something. I don't know how this guy overpowered this guy with this amazing technology from the, what was it, 26th century, I forget, but from several hundred years later, but we're not really given that past. Part of the reason I would want to write this story. And anyway, he goes to the Enterprise D in the 24th century, and he, again, claims to be from the future and says he's doing a survey and wants to learn everything he can about the Enterprise D and its crew. And I love it, by the way, when Picard says all his credentials seem to be in order. I'm like, how did he forge that? Okay. And anyway, he steals a bunch of items and takes them back and says he's going to invent one, or wants to take them back. He's thwarted, of course, and says that he wants to invent one every year, and he's going to build like a corporate empire based on technology from the 24th century. I always thought that was a great premise for an episode, for a one-and-done show. It's funny, but it also gets into some really interesting ethical questions about what kind of choices you would make if you knew about your own future and that kind of thing. And of course, ultimately, that stuff is not true, but Picard doesn't know it while they're having those ethical questions about, like, what if you accidentally created the next Hitler because you changed what the future was supposed to be, even though it's not your own future, and all of that. So it's a thinking show, but it's also a funny show. And I just love Matt Frewer as an actor. And if you're not familiar with him, you might know him as Malik from Watchmen. He's also known for Max Headroom. Anyway, I would want to write a story about him because I always thought that it was a missed opportunity that Enterprise didn't do anything with him, because he came from the 21st century from the 22nd century, and that's when Enterprise takes place, and so the 2100s. And I always thought it would be really cool if Archer ran into Berlinghoff Rasmussen. And so I'd write that story. I don't know if I could get an entire novel about it, but I always thought that could be cool. And then you could do a story about how the time traveler that he steals that from was actually part of the Temporal Cold War, because Enterprise is kind of a time travel show. And then you could use that, if you were going to try to write a full-blown novel, as a back door to try to finally flesh out the Temporal Cold War and explain who the heck Future Guy is. So that'd be what I would do with it. Alright, next question comes from Eric. Eric asks, he tried to give me a hard one, what is a revamp/reboot that completely changed from the original but that you love just as much? And I had to rack my brain about this hard because I kept thinking of stuff that was like a lot better than the original. So like love just as much was hard, because I was thinking of things like Battlestar Galactica, but I didn't like what little I saw of the first Battlestar Galactica that much, so it doesn't really fit the question. So I thought of a couple things. I thought of like Space Ghost by Alex Ross. But then that's weird because I love Space Ghost Coast to Coast, but I'm not a huge fan of original Space Ghost. But then Alex Ross did this really serious take on the, what was that, Filmation, or was it Hanna-Barbera, Space Ghost? And it was just breathtaking and epic and wonderful, but that doesn't quite fit the bill for the question. So this might be the obvious answer if you really know me, but I have to go with IDW's Ninja Turtles, written by Tom Waltz. I love various incarnations of the Ninja Turtles, especially the movie version. That take kind of takes a whole bunch of different versions of Ninja Turtles and puts it all together and in a very consistent and unique in its own tone. And it's, I grew up with the 87 cartoons, so I still kind of have some love for that, even though it doesn't hold up in the way I remembered it when I was a kid, because you fill in the blanks, and it felt like a more serious show, and it's kind of nonsensical and not really about anything now. And I didn't realize that when I was watching it. In the Turtles comics are a really good drama, and I mean I suppose I could say it's a revamp for like a lot of things Turtles. So like I say, I love the original Mirage comics, but I also love this just as much. I think that's true, but also the like as a, even though there's some tongue-in-cheekness about it, and a lot more tongue-in-cheekness to the Mirage comics, those were both, by and large, kind of serious things. But then I also have some love for the 87 show, and it's drawing heavily from that stuff, and even from, just action figures and things. So that's going to be my answer. Rasco wants to know, who would you want to direct a movie that you wrote? It's hard to give a singular answer for that because it would depend on what kind of movie it was. I'm going to say if I wrote a comedic film, if I wrote a quirky, because whatever I wrote would be a science fiction thing, probably. So I'm going to say if my novel, for instance, which is The Girl with Seven First Names, which is a quirky sci-fi thing, if that was adapted, I'd go for Barry Sonnenfeld. Barry Sonnenfeld, who directed Men in Black and who did the first, now, can't believe I'm saying that, live-action Tick series, and who did Pushing Daisies. He's a little bit of a hit-and-miss director. Sometimes he doesn't hit it out of the park, but I think his and my sensibilities line up real well, and I think that it lines up for my more quirky writing. If I wrote something more serious, I would go to none other than Duncan Jones. Next up. Oh, and I just found out today while I was looking up stuff that Duncan Jones is David Bowie's son. I didn't know that. If you don't know who Duncan Jones is, Moon, Source Code, and he's doing the upcoming Warcraft movie. David Bowie's son, I didn't know that. I was surprised that his name didn't come up at all in any conversations I had with people, or that I saw even online anywhere, when David Bowie passed away recently. Dan wants to know, hi Dan, what is your favorite science fiction novel of all time? I've talked about this on the channel before. My favorite science fiction novel, so I can't rack my brain and try to come up with something interesting because favorite. Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. The prose is not the easiest thing to get into if you're not used to that period in science fiction and Arthur C. Clarke's writing in general, but the premise and execution is really good. It's about a it's about a group of aliens with wings that kind of come in and dominate the Earth, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. They're sort of like, it's like an occupation, but they sort of act like it isn't, and they see themselves as much more enlightened than us, and they're trying to improve our culture and bring us to like the next step of our societal growth as a species. And it's kind of all about the terrifying notion of being part of a collective consciousness and not having your own individuality and your own ideas, but then also all the ways that everyone being the same and working together as one big unit that all thinks exactly the same way could benefit society. And one of the things that I always found really scary about it was that there is kind of an argument to be made for that, even though that freaks me the heck out, and I can't imagine ever being okay with not being able to be my own person and make my own choices. We've got one more. Steve wants to know, what character do you relate to most in fiction? And wouldn't you know it, this was the hardest one for me. I couldn't even believe that, because what I kept running into as I was thinking about this was there were a lot of characters that I look up to and that I want to be like, that I don't know that I necessarily am like enough already to say that I relate to them. And this is gonna seem like either a cop-out answer or a weird answer, or just not a good answer, but I could not get away from Bruce Wayne. And like, that might sound really strange, but of a lot of these characters, like Captain Picard, Professor X, I know that sounds weird because they're both played by Patrick Stewart, but like there's a lot of leadership characters that I look up to and want to be a lot like. And in some ways, I do want to be like Batman in that he has such incredible determination and drive, and he seems to be able to accomplish anything. And that guy has a 35-hour day instead of a 24-hour day, and he just even past the easy cop out I'm Batman thing, he is able to accomplish more than any mere mortal should be able to. And sometimes you actually buy that he's able to do that, just because of sheer willpower. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I can be kind of like that too. Not that I always pull it off, but that I can sometimes have that obsessive personality. I think that I think I inhabit already some negative and positive qualities of Bruce Wayne. And like I said, both of us have sort of that obsessive personality. Batman isn't happy. I mean, he's not happy anyway, but Batman's not happy if he's not constantly accomplishing what he's setting out to do. He's got to be productive. For Batman, being productive is going out and taking down the bad guys, because, of course, he's got this tragic past that leads him to it, and some of my certainly is because of personal experience, but I didn't have any huge traumas like that led me to it, and certainly nothing like having your parents gunned down in front of you in an alleyway. But I do think that I have that I have that in kind of an abstract way, in that I'm not happy if I'm not productive, if I'm not creating things, and so for me, my fighting crime is getting work out, is writing, is making videos, and I like to think that I care about my own. This might sound dopey, but I care about my own legacy and trying to influence people in a positive way, sort of like Batman does. And he and I both have like really particular worldviews and passionate ideas about what the world ought to be. And for him, it's his city at large, and for me, it's good storytelling. And I'm incredibly passionate about it, and constantly feeling the need to talk about what's working and what's not working, and try to help people to take those things to heart in their own writing. And so for me, that's like my fighting crime, and that is the best I can come up with, because like I said, I feel like a lot of characters that I relate to are characters more that I just kind of look up to. So I don't want to say Picard, because I don't think I have enough actual. I don't think I've risen to that yet, but so that feels like a disingenuous answer. But certainly there's a lot of things about Batman that I don't have, especially superficial things, like I'm not super rich. I do have a Batcave, but it's just a basement with a bunch of Batman things all over it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, when you make half your house Batman, you probably identify with that character in some way. Anyway, everybody, thanks as always for watching, and hope you enjoyed these Q&A videos today. Join us tomorrow night for a very important series of announcements live at 8 p.m. Central Time for Primetime Crisis, and get ready, because we've got some stuff coming your way. I'm Admiral Logan, and thanks again for watching.